This hearing continues the committee's examination of the government's response to Hurricane Katrina. With hurricane season upon us, it is critical that we fully understand the ability of federal agencies to serve those affected by large-scale disasters. This past April, the committee held a field hearing in New Orleans to review the government's efforts to include local small businesses in Hurricane Katrina recovery contracting. What we found was disappointing. The committee uncovered miscoded contracts and missed opportunities. Local small businesses testified at the hearing that they were unable to get prime contracts and that contracts were being awarded to large firms from out of state. The agency's own data supported this testimony. At the end of that hearing, I told the agencies that the committee will continue to monitor their contracting practices in New Orleans. So I have brought them back today to update the committee on their progress. Today's hearing will explore what has been done since we met in New Orleans. We will also look at any institutional changes that may have been made, updated statistics, and plans for future contracts awards. But I have to say that I am disappointed with the submitted testimony. Not one of the agencies testifying today has made local small businesses a priority. The testimony does not focus on specific and measurable ways to include these local small businesses in the rebuilding effort. At this point, I would expect less lip service and more action. The use of local and small businesses is vital to the recovery of the Gulf Coast. This agency witnesses acknowledged as much at our last meeting in front of local small business owners. Today, we're going to find out why more action has not been taken. When we talk about the federal government response to disasters, we generally talk about SBA Disaster Loan Program, and with good reason. In the aftermath of the hurricanes, thousands of small businesses turned to SBA for financial assistance, but instead only found frustration and difficulty. Over 200,000 applications sat mired in a loan processing backlog that took well over a year to process. Those victims who were approved for loans often waited months to receive any funds. We are also beginning to learn that the agency's efforts to improve the backlog employed some very aggressive tactics, which left many disaster victims without the help they needed. A recent SBA Inspector General report confirmed this, and this committee continues to review these findings. In addition to these concerns, the SBA released a disaster recovery plan that falls short of making the necessary cultural and workforce changes to remedy these past problems. While we do want to spend time examining this plan, we also need to talk about government-wide plans to increase contracting opportunities for local small businesses. For the agencies here today, it must be a priority for them to ensure that small and local firms are part of any rebuilding process following a disaster. As Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama begin the long process of reconstruction, we are already seeing the important contributions that can only come from these businesses. Small firms are the largest job creators and the engines that power economic growth. Clearly, the federal government must focus on prioritizing these companies in its Gulf Coast recovery efforts. I look forward to the testimony today, and I thank all the witnesses for making every effort to be with us today. I now recognize Mr. Chabot for his opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No one disputes the fact that the federal government's response to the Gulf Coast hurricanes in 2005, particularly in Katrina, was not up to the standards it should have been. It was in general inadequate, although considerable effort was made by many individuals, and there were true heroes involved in the efforts, but there certainly were holes. The committee held a field hearing in April to assess the state of small business involvement in the recovery. I commend the Chairwoman for her diligence in the continued oversight to ensure that the recovery efforts utilize local small businesses to the extent possible. Local small business involvement after a disaster is crucial to economic recovery. Without economic recovery, an area will never return to its pre-disaster status. Businesses located in the area have a vested interest in ensuring the economic vitality of the region that they call home. Local businesses will hire members of the community to perform the work associated with response and rebuilding. Funds dispersed will stay in the local area because the business and the employees are local. Participation by small businesses in disaster response and recovery certainly is valuable to the community. However, that must be tempered by the realities on the ground related to the disaster. Federal, state, and local agencies certainly should have in place disaster response plans that call for the participation of small businesses, but also recognize that the primary mission is health and safety, and that must take priority over small business participation, although small business participation, as I said before, is important. To make these types of decisions, it is necessary to have a comprehensive set of emergency response plans in place. I know that Administrator Preston has worked diligently in deriving an emergency response plan, one that provides the necessary response, but recognizes that federal agencies operate under certain fiscal constraints. I'm sure that the witnesses at the table will ensure that proper coordination takes place among the agencies in response to the next major disaster, and the mistakes associated with the response to Hurricane Katrina are not repeated. In closing, I would like to thank the distinguished members of the panel for coming here today to explain the actions they have taken to enhance the participation of small businesses in disaster relief and recovery.